Shabbat Shalom, all esteem belongs to the most majestic one. I'll be Yahuwah. Another truth-telling session. Yeah, we back. We are back again. All esteem belongs to Abba Yahuwah. Excited to be back here in this space and time to be able to dedicate my time to sharing the truth, making the facts known, showing that the age we're living in is being exposed left and right. I'll see y'all out there in the comments. I believe my sound is coming across clear on my end. Hopefully, if it is on your end, you can drop a 7 in the comments. But all esteem belongs to Yahuwah. This is a powerful, potent word, and it is on time. It is on time. I'm excited for this word because it's some confirmation, revelation / confirmation of things that I've been asking Abba Yahuwah to. Actually, I wasn't asking Abba Yahuwah, but it came to me of some truths that I wasn't too happy about. I won't say happy. I would say hadn't really stomached the truths, put it that way, because they're hard truths, and hard truths is not easy to just simply say, okay, good, I accept it all. I see those comments, all those 7s in the comments. All esteem belongs to the most majestic one. Looks like Fake Book didn't stop the streaming on the page, or is that the wrong one? Let me see here, because the Fake Book don't like streaming on the Moving Mindset Ministry. Yep, so they stopped the streaming. What they do is they, in order, if you're on the Facebook page, instead of the streaming showing up in the feed, you have to click on the icon, whatever that thing is called, the image, and then you can see the streaming rather than just populating the feed, which probably means you don't get a notification that is being streamed on Fedbook, as I heard someone say before. Fake book. It's all fake. It's all a facade. The entire system is built to control the narrative. Is built to perpetuate a false narrative, a fake reality, in order to keep people, comfortable in their lives, keeping their eyes wide shut, thinking that everything's going to be okay. It had nothing to do with you communicating and getting to know people, reaching out to old friends or classmates or whatnot. It had everything to do with controlling the narrative. That's why they censor truth. Truth don't go viral. It never goes viral. You can't look in the scriptures and never find a time that truth went viral. Only thing that happened was truth went out. It was virally rejected, and then came the aftermath of the judgment. That was viral. And this is the age in which we are living in. The end we're living in, the times is clearly showing that the age is coming to an end. And we want to make sure we know the truth as far as we can tell in the time what we're living in, what time we're living in, and what truth we need in order to walk according to it, because we are living in I'm telling you, the lies are horrific. The lies are horrific. But it's okay. It's all right. Because darkness cannot prevail over light. Good cannot prevail over evil. It may look like they're winning. Yep, it may very well look like they are achieving success. But the truth is, judgment is all over these people. But you know what? I really love the timing of the most majestic one. I love how he moves and how when we are patient and when we're not trying to do our own thing, we listen, and he navigates us through situations. He navigates us through trials and tribulations, all to use us. That's the end of the day. That's the reason why a lot of us have the misconception about being used in these end times, or just times in general. Before we even realized we was in the end times, we have this misconception that we're not supposed to go through storms. Once we reach a level of so-called deliverance, salvation, favor, whatnot. But the truth is, the very essence of you going through a storm is proof that you are not cast away, that you are not part of the fallen, the rebels, the lawless, that you are actually chosen. It's contrary to the formality and and what's normal in society. You know, and we have to understand that the purpose of going through storms is so that we can be built up for the people whom he has called us to be, the people who he has desired us to be for the longest time. That is the essence of why we go through hard times, setbacks, trials, and tribulations. And it's above all things is so that we can hear him speak. We can understand, perceive the message that he's given us to us, so we can navigate this dark age. Because we're literally in a prison / classroom. And we need to make the most of the opportunities that are given to us, because at the end of the day, what we do proves who we serve. It proves who we believe in. It proves who we actually follow. And I had a proof of this in my own life just yesterday. I just had sent out the the preview to the study, what to expect for what we'll be talking about today. And after I did that, I left to go pick up an order of groceries from the store. I had set up a shop for pickup, because that delivery and the fees and tips and all that stuff, man, that stuff be racking up these days. So I went to go pick it up myself, but I already had some issues with it. Some of whoever's supposed to shop it apparently said the app was down, and just some different things were taking place. And my thought was they just didn't want to do the shopping or whatnot, because you shop, you don't get a tip for delivery, from my understanding. So anyways, I go over to the store to go get it, and I sit in the car. Literally, I'm the only one in the parking lot. They're getting ready to close, and I'm sitting there for 20-25 minutes, and I'm looking over at the door where the person has the food, and I'm wondering, okay, what's taking y'all so long? So eventually they come out, and the lady tells me they have my order messed up. There's a bag missing, and they had about 45 minutes before they were closing. And she said, when you get home, just check everything and let us know what you're missing. We'll refund you or whatnot, or give it to you tomorrow. And I'm like, well, I don't plan on adding. That's not part of my schedule to come back to the store or call you guys over an error. 45 minutes is plenty enough time to go back and go back inside and look over the order. So I went back in, and I can tell you the people saw me come in the store, and their attitude was like, oh man, he's getting ready to blow a gasket. Angry black man on aisle 5. I mean, you can just feel that atmosphere starting to brew. And I was very patient, and I kept being thanked for my patience. Thank you for your patience. So we got through everything, figured out what was missing, stuff got fixed, and I went on my way. As I left, I've been working on doing my own do-it-yourself, trying to get my car working. So I ended up, the service engine light comes on after I pretty much did everything I could to get it going. Up and running smooth, I guess. So I go to the auto shop to do a code test, to run the code to see what's the reason. And I get a code, and just kind of discuss the thing. And I didn't want to go to the shop because it was late and they're getting ready to close as well. So, but I had this urge to go to the shop, just get it out of the way. So I went over there again, and I did that. And then I was like, okay, time to go. But I needed gas in the car. And I was like, I can get it tomorrow. But I had another urge, right? You get that sense that you have to do something, that you need to do it. And of course, you get the weirdest thoughts. Okay, all the gas will be shut down tomorrow. I won't be able to get any. We have to flee. You don't have any gas in the car. All these weird thoughts come to your head. But that was not the reason I went, and why I obeyed, obviously. But I went to go get the gas, and I go into the gas station, and there's a gentleman that was standing before me, a so-called black man. And he was standing there, but he wasn't doing anything, like getting rung up or whatever. He was counting his money, and it's on his phone. So I asked the guy, "Are you in line?" And he looks up and he's like, I said, "Go ahead, brother. Go ahead and do your thing." So I step aside, let him do it, and the cashier, I think the guy he was short. I think he was maybe Indian or something. I can't tell particularly, but maybe Arab. Um, Sometimes I get it mixed up, just the color of skin. But anyway, so the guy was the cashier just started talking all kind of crazy nonsense to the guy the guy there. He said stuff like, you guys always steal, and what do you do for a living? Just talking unnecessary things to the man. And I could tell he was trying to provoke him. And the gentleman that was before me paying asked the guy, "Do you like your job?" He said, "You must be trying to, get an early paid vacation or something." Say, you must be a fighter, or like to fight. And you could tell the brother, the man was holding back, trying not to let the words that the cashier was saying provoke him. The guy even told the cashier even told him, he said, "What do you pick up trash for a living?" So, I can tell that the gentleman was trying to figure out how to pay for his food and gas and oil and stuff he needed to put in the car. So he had split it up in like 3 different transactions. So I pay for my gas, and of course the guy tries to provoke me too, and says, "Hey, did you say you wanted to put $2.25 in your gas tank?" I was like, "Man, just give me just take care of what I need to take care of so I can get out of here." I knew what he was trying to do. So I walk out, and the gentleman is literally parked across from me getting gas right on the other side of the pump. And he just starts ranting and raving and carrying on and talking about how he can't believe this guy is talking to him like this and disrespecting him. It's late at night, and me and him is in the store, and the man is talking like this, and he must be outside his mind because we could have XYZ. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do any of that. But, I felt his frustration. I understood it clearly, and I saw it all built up. And mind you, when I was in there, I was like, man, this is going to turn into one of them darn YouTube off the hinges video. I'm thinking, should I turn my phone on, start recording now before, the narrative goes sideways? But yeah, so I ended up asking the brother, I said, "Do you know why you're treated like that? Do you know why he talks to you like that?" And he was, trying to figure it out. I said, "Let me ask you a question. What is the 2 most hated, manipulated, twisted, and rejected things on the planet? Can be argued, 2." And he said, he looks at me, has this kind of off the wall look, and he says, "Don't tell me it's us." I said, "Brother, it's us and the Bible. And we talk about us so-called Black people." And he said, man, you could just tell like a light bulb goes on in his brother's head. He looks up and he's like, "Oh man, you're right." I said, "That's why they talk to you." I said, "Where do you not go? Where do you not go in this world, in this life, and you experience some type of discrimination?" And he starts to think like, yeah, everywhere he goes, he's discriminated. So I asked him, I said, "Have you ever seen a hater doing better than you?" And he's like, "Never." He never sees, no one's ever seen that, right? You never see a hater doing better than you. So I said, "Let me ask you like another question. If we are who the world has painted us to be for ages, less than everybody else, not worthy, not of any value, constantly discriminated against, that we're these low class, worthless individuals, then why are the people who deem themselves higher than us hateful towards us? Why are they despise us so much if we're on such a low level?" And I told the gentleman clearly, I said, "Because we are the people of the book. That's why." And you can tell again, his whole demeanor changed. He went from being super irate, ready to go in there and get that dude to business, come back maybe and do something. And he started saying, "You know what, man, I'm not going to let that brother get under my skin. He's not going to, call me out of character and do this and do that." Now, I don't know if I was sent there to save that brother from doing something he ought not do, but the timing and everything that happened before that, the challenges that I had to deal with before I got to that gas station, the fact that I'm trying to get my vehicle working without any real issues, shows the meticulous will of the most majestic one. When people deny themselves, when you deny who you are, and you, as Shaul said, you clean yourself up of the things prior to the old way, the old life, he said, then you become a vessel of honor, fit for the master for every good work. But I had to endure a test of patience before I can even arrive to that place. And again, the timing is just so phenomenal. I could have went directly home. I could have said, okay, I'll take the groceries and figure it out later. All that was, again, a part of his predestined plan, put it that way, his already established order and how he wants to do things and how he uses his people in the last days. He's always done it this way, but now more than ever, and that's about as far as the conversation went with the gentleman. And I left, and I wanted to tell him more, but I only gave him what was given to me at the time before he decided to pull off. Talking about he got a family to get home to, so he's not about to, mess his life up dealing with this cashier who's trying to obviously get an extended vacation, very financially, at least that's what the thought was. But I give the honor and esteem to the most majestic one, because I could have been doing anything else. I could have listened to anything else. And it goes back to what happened with Elijah had fled Jezebel when she sought to destroy him. He went up to the mountain, and the scriptures talk about how the wind came and it broke the rocks, and all this theatrical experience that took place. And every time the scriptures talk about things that happened in that moment when Elijah stood on the rocks, he said the Yahuwah was not in those experiences. But then afterward came the still small voice. And that's how Yahuwah was communicating with me as I was moving through yesterday's experience after I released the preview, if you will, of what we'll be talking about today. But I give him the honor because I know I'm undeserving to be able to sit here on this equal platform and share the truth. I'm not a stranger to my history. I'm not out trying to prove something that I'm not. I don't consider myself more than what I am, but I know that he will use his people. And I am evidence of that reality because he allows it to be so. So all esteem and honor belongs to him. And I just wanted to share that because, again, even with this message, it's all by his will. I was asleep and fell asleep petitioning you. And the last thing I said, I can remember saying was, Yahuwah, what do you want me to say? If I found favor, still have favor in your sight, what message do you want me to deliver to the people? And I dreamed, and the very words that came to me from a malak was understanding the truth. Verbatim, this is what it was: the blindness of Yasharal and the fullness of the Gentiles. So as I'm putting in, and this came Thursday, well, let's see, yesterday before this day. So this came when I went to sleep the night before. So I woke up before I shared the intro of this message of what will happen. So I literally have been spending most of this morning receiving the revelation, or most of this day receiving the revelation from the most majestic one on what this study will be about. And man, when I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, there's things that I've been thinking about, been coming to me, but I haven't been trying to press and rush any information or knowledge or trying to say is true, just waiting. And sure enough, boom, the confirmation comes on me like a ton of bricks. The revelation is solidified, and you're going to find out some truths about the blindness of Yasharel that is not according to the narratives we all have been conditioned to believe. And it's right in the word. That's the beauty of it. It's like it's always plainly in the word, but it's up to Yahuwah to reveal that plain reality to his people in his timing, according to his way. So we're going to get into this truth, this reality right here. And we're going to start off with, in order to help us understand this blindness of Yasharel and the fullness of the nations, the Gentiles, we need to get into the letter Yahudah wrote. And this is Yahudah, Jude, if you will. was one of the taught ones that walk with Yahusha, and he has the shortest letter, but it is the most powerful one out of those who walk with Yahusha, because it is explicitly for the times which we are living in now. Yahuwah was not playing when he understood, when he made it known the times we are living in. He was preparing us for this very hour, because the deception is heavy, the rebellion, the lawlessness, and what doesn't seem like falsehood, man, is so subtle. It is so doggone subtle, and it's why it's so important to walk with him. It's so important to deny this age, deny yourself, so that he can just give you the plain truth hidden right before our faces. It wasn't never, I didn't go dig into no old ancient books to figure this out. He gave it to me very plain right here in Yahuwah's letter. And we're going to use other parts of the scriptures, those kept from the so-called Bible or taken out of the so-called Bible, in order to cross-reference, confirm, and support this reality. But let's get into this word right here. In his letter, the letter starts off by saying, Yahuwah, again, Jude, a bondservant of Yahusha, the brother of Jacob, James, to those who are called, consecrated by Yahuwah the Abba, and preserved in Yahusha, compassion, Shalum, and love be multiplied to you. Again, he's talking to who? The called, consecrated by Yahuwah. He said, he goes on to say something that's been very profound as every time I read it. Beloved, while I was very diligent to write you concerning our common deliverance, you'll see salvation in the so-called Bible you have. I found it necessary to write you, exhorting you earnestly contend for the belief which was once for all delivered to the consecrated ones. This right here is the essence of what we're going to be talking about. The truth tells us in the beginning of Yahuwah's letter is that the deliverance or salvation is common. It's not exclusive. Okay, this is one who walked with the righteous right arm. He said it's common. Okay, and he's walking to people who are preserved in Yahusha, the righteous right arm. Okay, and then he says it was once delivered to the consecrated ones. Consecrated has nothing to do with you having a tribe. You want to say you from Benjamin or Gad or Dan? No, consecration is you being set apart or separated. You being cleaned, purified, renewed. Has nothing to do with the tribe. We're going to solidify that as we go on. And the reason why Yahuwah said he don't want to talk about salvation, he said, because for certain men have crept in unnoticed who long ago were marked out for this condemnation. He said they were already exposed long ago. Lawless men who turn the favor of Yahuwah into lewdness and deny the only Almighty and our Master Yahusha. Okay, so again, we are in a part of the gathering that don't believe in two entities. We believe Yahuwah is Yahusha, Yahusha is Yahuwah, and here is further proof to solidify this. He is the only Almighty and our Master Yahusha. If there were two entities, one have to be Yahusha couldn't be Almighty. Okay. Going on, he tells us that, but I want to remind you, though you once knew this, that Yahuwah, having saved the people out of the land of Mizraim, afterward destroyed those who did not believe, and the Malachim messengers who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own dwelling place. He has preserved an everlasting change under darkness for the judgment of the great day. As Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, in a similar manner, having given themselves over to sexual immorality, are gone after strange flesh, and are used as an example of suffering the vengeance of the everlasting fire. Okay, so he goes off to talk. He starts off talking about how he rather talk about the common deliverance for the people who are consecrated. Okay, but he can't do that because some folks have crept in unnoticed long ago, they were identified for that particular condemnation to come in and pretend to be, who will also twist the favor of the most majestic one. You would see so-called grace in your book, in the so-called Bible. Okay, but he gives out an example of the punishments that fell on the people who walked in similar matters. Everyone from the people who left Mizraim or Egypt, to the people who to the fallen watchers who didn't stay at their posts, even to the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. What Yahudah does is gives a all-encompassing, a full scope of judgment falling. So he's saying, whether you were chosen to come out of Mizraim, whether you were created to be a so-called heavenly being, or whether you were just Joe Schmo living in Sodom and Gomorrah, you are not going to escape judgment when you twist the favor of Yahuwah. All these were favors. All these examples were people or beings or entities who twisted the favor of Yahuwah. He goes on to say another example. Likewise, also, these dreamers defile the flesh, reject authority, and speak evil of esteemed ones. He's talking about the elect. Come on and start yipping, talking about people not chosen or whatever the case may be. Yet, listen, yet Michael, the arch messenger, the chief malak, in contending with the devil, when he disputed about the body of Moshe, dared not bring against him a reviling accusation, but said, Yahuwah rebuke you. But these speak evil of whatever they do not know, and whatever they know naturally, like brute beast. In these things they corrupt themselves. Woe to them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and have run greedily in the error of Balaam and prophet, Balaam for prophet, and perish in the rebellion of Korah. So he's giving again examples. He's making it clear that the people who have crept in unnoticed among the assembly of the most majestic one, the righteous right arm, they twist the favor of Yahuwah so horrifically that he uses the chief malak, Michael or Michael, and says that not even him, who is the chief, who is commanded to do greatness for the most majestic one, to watch over the chosen people. He said he didn't even talk grease to Hashatan when he was trying to get Moshe's body. He simply said, Yahuwah rebuke you. But these people, oh man, they'll open up their mouths and they will say whatever they want, all to twist the favor of Yahuwah. Just to twist it up. Who was Cain? Cain killed his brother for what reason? None, right? Cain did nothing to Abel did nothing to Cain, and Cain killed Abel. And of course, Balaam was all about money, willing to try to manipulate his way around sending a curse on the house of Yasharel. Said, these are blemishes in your love feast, while they feast with you without fear, serving only themselves. He's saying that these people are here among you when you do your feast. They may not simply be in your house when you feasting, but if you are out somewhere feasting, doing one of the appointed times with these people, he said these people are with you and they are fearless, and they are blemishes. Blemishes are spots, and they stand out. And he just doesn't tell you that they stand out. He gives an example, right? Who are these people specifically? It's so important to break down Yahudah's letter to get to this reality. Who are these people specifically? This is what Yahudah writes. He declares they are clouds without water, right? Why do you need clouds? Because clouds not only provide you water, but they shade you from the heat, all right? Remember the scriptures said when Moshe had brought the people, led the people out of Mizraim, Yahuwah gave them clouds by day to cover them from the scorching sun, right? And fire by night, so they weren't freezing. All right, clouds bring water so you don't have droughts, but these are people who are clouds without water. They come bringing this illusion, this appearance of having water, but there's a drought that's happening. What is the drought in the end times? He said, what is the drought? You guys remember? The scripture says, if you know it, put it in the comments. But the verse says that there will be a famine in the earth in the last days, and it be not of food and water, but of hearing the words of Abba Yahuwah. It didn't say hearing the word. It didn't say hearing your version or someone else's version. It didn't even say getting on and hearing this study. I know we don't go so-called viral on these evil platforms, but that's not the drought per se. The drought is hearing the words of Yahuwah. Okay. He said there will be a famine, and that famine is because there is no rain, though we have a ton of clouds everywhere supposedly bringing the rain. Okay, let us, Yahuda or Yehoshua or Hosea 3:6 says, let us know, let us pursue knowledge, the knowledge of Yahuwah. His going forth is established as the morning. He will come to us like the rain, like the latter and the former rain to the earth. Okay, how does Yahuwah bring the rain? I'm glad you asked that question. Barak Yahuwah, you his Malachim messengers who excel in strength, who do his word, heeding the voice of his word. Tehillim, Psalms 103:20 is what King David said. He said, you guys esteem, you bless, you honor the most majestic one, because you are the people who bring the rain. What is the rain? It is his word. It is nothing other than his word. Okay, you're not talking about theology. He's not talking about philosophy or your interpretation, my interpretation. It says his words are brought by his Malachim. Only truly appointed messengers of Yahuwah are clouds that bring the rain of Shemaim. You can't find nothing else in the word, whether it's in the so-called Old Testament, New Testament scriptures taken out or rejected from the Bible. You cannot find anything else that tells us that it is something other, someone other than those who are appointed by way of the most majestic one, Yahuwah. All right. They are carried about by the wind. Okay. Again, the people who crept in unnoticed, they are carried about by the wind. And he himself gave some to be sent ones, some messengers, some proclaimers of the barashah, or the good news, the good tidings, and some shepherds and teachers for the equipping of the consecrated ones, for the working of the calling, for the building of the body of Yahusha, till we all come to the unity of the belief and the knowledge of the bond of Yahuwah, bond extension of the house. We don't use son anymore because we understand that's derived from the whole flesh perspective of what a son is. All right, we need the scriptural Shemaim understanding. To the perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Yahusha. Okay, Shaul goes on to say that we should no longer be children. How? Tossed to and fro and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting. Ephesians 4:14-12. Shaul solidifies the reality of what Yahuda or Jude had pointed out. They are carried by the wind. They are moved by every version of doctrine that exists, or a doctrine that exists that is not stable. That's why he called it the wind. The wind does not sit still. The wind does not have a foundation. The wind is not a tree rooted by the waters. Okay, planted, producing fruit in its due season. Late autumn trees without fruit. Yahuda says these are late autumn trees. They come in late without fruit. Yeah, you ever seen the trees show up late for work and then got no fruit on it? He said these are these blemishes coming in here, twisting the favor of Yahuwah. Understand this, beloved. The most vital autumn tree in these last days is the fig tree. Fig trees are showing up at producing fruit in autumn. There is no question, and there was no coincidence that Yahud describes a fig tree or a tree. He points out a tree. and that a fig tree is used by Yahusha in the word. And you learn the parable of the fig tree. So also, as soon as the shoot therefore is come forth and the twigs have grown, the end of the world will come. And I, Kepha, answered and said unto him, interpret unto me concerning the fig tree, whereby we perceive it. For throughout all its days does the tree sends forth shoots, and every year it brings forth the fruit for its master. And that what then means the parable of the fig tree? No, we know it not. And the master Yahusha answered and said unto me, understand you not that the fig tree is the house of Yasharel? Even as a man that planted the tree in the garden, and it brought forth no fruit. And he sought the fruit thereof for many years. And when he found it not, he said to the keeper of his garden, root up this fig tree, that it will not make our ground to be unfruitful. He said, listen, I've been looking for fruit on this tree. What tree? The house of Yasharel. And I cannot find it. Have been looking for years, and I cannot find it. So look here, groundskeeper. Go ahead and uproot this people, this tree, this fruitless tree. Okay? So that it doesn't make the rest of the ground unfruitful. However, Yahusha goes on to say, and the gardener said unto Yahuwah, suffer not to rid it of weeds, and dig up the ground around it and water it. Then it bears no fruit. If then it bears no fruit, we will straightway remove its root out of the garden and plant another in place of it. Have you not understood that the fig tree is the house of Yasharel? He is saying very plainly here that there is a house as a whole who has for years failed to do what it was created, it was planted, it was called to do, which was produce fruit. What is the fruit? It is the righteousness of the most majestic one, Yahuwah. Okay, that's the fruit. And they failed for ages to do this. However, the keeper said, hold on, let's work around the ground of the tree, and let's try to nurture it. Let's try to provide for it. And if it doesn't produce fruit after this, then yeah, we'll go ahead and remove it and reimplant something else or someone else there. Truly I say unto you, when the twigs thereof have sprouted forth in the last days, then will fake anointed come and awake expectations, saying, I am the anointed that am now come into the world. And when Yasharel will perceive the wickedness of their deeds, listen, they will turn away after them and deny him our Banaim sons did esteem, who our sons did esteem. All right. Again, we say Ban, son, or Banaim in the context of extension of the house. What house they're extended from, a reaching out from, created from, sent out from. Even Yahusha, whom they crucified, and therein sinned a great sin. They said they will turn away because they will witness the deeds of the wicked, who will come in and say they are the anointed. It said fake anointed people will arrive and pull these cats with them. Okay, but this deceiver, the one that's going to lead them, is not the anointed. And when they reject him, he will slay with the sword, and there will be many martyrs. Then will the trees or the twigs of the fig tree, that is the house of Yasharel, we get it 3 times, shoot forth. Many will become martyrs at his hand. Okay, reading on a little bit more. Kanak and Eliah, or Enoch and Elijah, will be sent to teach them that this is the deceiver which must come into the world, to do signs and wonders, to hoodwink people. And therefore will they that die by his hand be martyrs. and will be reckoned among the good and the righteous martyrs who have pleased Yahuwah in their life. Isn't that so interesting? When you read this truth right here, Apocalypse of Kepha Peter, chapter 3, 11 through 25, he clearly says that these people will do a great sin. They will turn and follow the man of sin, following after all these so-called anointed people who are leading people to the lawless one. Church, camps, we talk about this all the time. Okay, we're going to solidify it even further as we continue on in this study. But the reality is that these fake people, fake sent ones, fake messengers have no testimony from the Shemayim, are sending people, prepping people, conditioning them to receive the man of sin. But they will at one point turn away, and they will become righteous martyrs. They will lose their life. The many of Yasharel will perish in righteousness only because they turn from following the lawless one at the cost of their life. That's why. It won't be because they stood on true righteousness. They stood on the right way. They are the house of Yasharel who will lose their life all because they didn't want to be obedient, but they figured it out before it was too late. Okay, moving on. Yehuda says twice dead. Okay, he said these blemishes, these people who crept in unnoticed are twice dead. Okay, what does that mean? Scripture says, for if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful expectation of judgment and fiery indignation that will devour the adversaries. Anyone who rejected the law of Moshe dies without compassion on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. Of how much worse punishment do you suppose will he be thought worthy who has trampled the bond of Yahuwah underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was consecrated a common thing, and insulted the consecrated breath? Hebrews 10, 24 through 27. So what we see here is clearly there is a greater punishment than what happened to the people who by 2 or 3 witnesses were found guilty of violating the law of Moshe, guilty of a crime that mandated death. What's worse than death? It is the second death. Okay, so what Yehuda or Jude is saying is that these people are basically going to die twice, in this life and the next. The temporal death and the eternal one. Okay, pulled up by the roots. When he had called the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear and understand, it is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man. Then he taught, then his taught ones came and said to him, do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying? Oh, messed up their whole tradition. But he answered and said, every plant which my Abba of the Shemayim, the heavens, has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind leads the blind, both will fall into a ditch. Matthew 16, 10 through 15. Okay, so he says very clearly, these people are going to be uprooted because they were never planted by the Shemayim. Okay, they're going to be plucked, picked, removed, the tares, the chaff, the wheat, the weeds, the people who came in through another gate. Yeah, those who came in not through the actual entrance into the sheepfold, which is the righteous right on, but people who came in over, the back way, the side entrance, underground, right? Dropped in out of the sky, whatever the case may be. Yeah, and that's a lot of them. Everywhere you look, I use these folks because they're prominent out there. They're the prominent ones, but there's so many other ministries or so-called gatherings, whatever, awakenings that line up just along with this reality right here. They line up perfectly with this reality. Yahud goes on to say, raging waves of the sea, but the wicked are like the troubled sea, which it cannot rest, whose waters cast up myrrh and dirt. Yasharel, Isaiah 57:20. He says these people are like the sea. It's one thing to have to deal with salt water. If you ever been in the ocean, you know it's salt water. Right? If you're in the California ocean, stay out of that water. That stuff is poison. I went in there several months back, and I came out of that sucker. My feet was swollen. I ain't never been in salt water before. My feet swelled up. Yeah, it was hard to walk on my feet. They got some poison junk going on out in California waters. But anyways, you already got to deal with salt water. Now you got the myrrh and the dirt that these imposters who crept in bring about. Have you ever tried to at least survive their doctrine? Have you ever at least tried to stay afloat? Okay, I'm not talking about thriving and walking on water, at least trying to stay afloat in the stuff they be perpetuating. Man, foaming up their own name. Yep, their own name. For many walk, whom I have told you often and now tell you weeping, that they are enemies of the stake of Yahusha, whose end is destruction, whose mighty one is their belly, and whose esteem is in their shame, who have placed their mind on earthly things. Yasharel. Oh, that's not this verse. This is what Shaul said. That's not the correct verse. But nevertheless, these are the individuals, right? They are out in their shame. A lot of us be thinking about people walking around out of shape and overweight and all that, the shame, right? Belly. No, these people are feeding their appetite, okay? Their appetite for their version of truth. That's what they set their mind, their heart, and their ideologies on. That's why they have, again, a 12 tribe chart that don't even align with the scriptures. The very book they read from debunks the 12 tribe chart that they have. Okay, a little tongue twister there. But just again, having to realize that reality. Wandering stars from whom is reserved for the blackness of darkness forever. Now you would think this is talking about, let's see exactly what it's talking about right here. And now the breaths of giants who were produced from the breaths and the flesh will be called breaths upon the earth, and on the earth will be their dwelling. Evil breaths have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men and from the consecrated watchers in their beginning and primo origin. They will be evil breaths on the earth, and evil breaths they will be called. Tanakh Enoch 15, 8-9. What reality is this? This reality is that the people who are preserved for darkness before humans were the watchers who fell, and because of what they did, they defiled the daughters of man with taking on many creature forms, animals. They became variations of animals, and they defiled the daughters of man and bringing forth giants and evil creatures. Okay, Yahuwah took the leaders and all of them and chained them up in darkness in the earth for judgment. And their children, the breaths of their children, you will see spirits in the Bible, the scriptures that you use. But the breaths of their children, the scripture says they will roam on the earth. Well, we know breaths don't just hang out at the bar and grill. They are looking for hosts. They are looking for people in order to take advantage of empty beings who are not filled with the truth, so that they can use them to perpetuate the same nonsense the fallen did, defiling humanity with lies and deception. Too many are more focused on what has the least amount of effectiveness. Okay. Yes. And this is a lot of us who come into the so-called Great Awakening, right? Wake up, and then we find out, oh, these people are not chosen. Oh, these people are chosen, right? A lot of people stay stuck in that place. And because they stay stuck there, they don't realize that the truth is the focus of who's supposed to not be chosen according to the world's narrative has very little effect on regarding how we ought to respond and who we truly ought to be looking out for. This is what Shaul wrote to the people. He said, "For I know this, that after my departure, savage wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. Also from among yourselves, men will rise up, speaking perverse things, to draw away the taught ones after themselves." This is Acts 20, 29 through 30. Right? Yep. 29 to 30. Many people have literally built a so-called ministry around the narrative of these people. Okay. The Ashkenaz folks, the people who are telling you they are children of Gomer, call themselves Ashkenaz. Right? They have built their doctrine, their whole out there on the corners, in the pulpits, on the internet, talking about these individuals. But the truth is, who they are is only mentioned as far as their role in Scripture, what they do, twice. This is not the greatest warning and what we were told to be on the lookout for. In fact, when you read Revelation 2:9, 3:9, you will see the Scripture says that I know those who say they are of the tribe of Yehudah, but are not. Okay, they are truly of the synagogue of Hasatan. But when you stay honed in on this ideology, on this declaration regarding these individuals, then you are missing the wider, more significant, more vital reality of what we as the consecrated people were truly warned about and what we ought to be preparing for. Remember, Yehudah declared that certain men crept in unnoticed. They crept in without being caught. They came in like spies. They came in looking like the people. Yehudah or Jude 1:4. Who do you think crept into Yasharel? Okay. Who do you think crept in to Yasharel? The one on the left or the one on the right? With all the facts that we have now, who fits the description of the transatlantic slave trade? Who are the people who are still living out these curses? Who are the people hung on the tree like Yahushua HaMashiach was hung on the tree when he says no servant is greater than their master? All right, we obviously can just answer the question very plainly. Yes, it is the person on the right. Is Yasharel still blind? By this understanding now, by who we can tell the people crept in unnoticed, is the tribes still blind? Let's answer this with the truth. Context is so doggone key. Oh my goodness. When the Yahuwah showed me this, I was like, whoa, right? I had to take a step back and I had to let it marinate because I was like, this is delicious. I love it when the truth comes through. Okay, and we're going to understand this truth by looking at 2 Corinthians chapter 3, the blindness of Yasharal. One of the verses, one of the declarations that is taken past or doesn't reach the actual context of what Shaul is saying and what he was saying supports the history of the scriptures. Okay, the contextual, consistent history, not no deviation, addition, or variation, but the plain, straight line evidence that cannot be denied over the history of the text. Okay, we're going to start off by reading where he said, are we beginning to commend ourselves again, or do we need, as some do, letters of recommendation to you or from you? Why did he start off saying this reality, asking these questions? Because the truth is, even in the time of Shaul, and you see this all throughout the text, he's constantly talking about these self-righteous Pharisaic people who claim to be the chosen. And they're talking about letters. Shaul talking about the letters, or you probably see epistles in there of recommendation or commending, saying that, hey, don't reject this individual because they are actually chosen. Okay, today's narrative is about skin complexion, the false narrative that drives people. Okay, that's their most of these people who claim to be awake, that's how they perpetuate it. Then it was simply, you're talking to a people who knew They weren't lost at that time to the knowledge of themselves. Okay, they understood Torah. They knew where the true promised land was. This was before the loss of identity, if you will, that was given in Deuteronomy chapter 30, 32, I believe. Okay, Shaul goes on to say, you yourselves are our letters of recommendation written on our hearts to be known and ready by all. And you show that you are a letter of Yahusha delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the breath of the living Yahuwah, not on tables of stone, but on the tablets of human hearts. Such is the confidence that we have through Yahusha towards Yahuwah, not that we are sufficient in ourselves, but claim anything as coming from us, but our sufficiency is from Yahuwah, who made us sufficient to be servants of a renewed covenant, not the letter, but the breath. For the letter kills, but the breath gives life. This right here is where church takes a different turn, church doctrine, when they try to say, oh, the law is done away with. We no longer need to pay attention to the letter, but it's clear that they obviously don't have the breath and discernment to understand the reality of what Shaul is making known. So we're going to look at what he says about the breath and the letter, so we'll get the clarity. And I petition that Abba Yahuwah allows you to see how easy it's been manipulated and what the truth really says. Now, if the ministry of death carved in letters on stone came with such esteem that the children of Yasharel could not gaze at Moshe's face because of the esteem which was being brought to an end. Listen, he said it was what happened with Moshe, with the tablets, is being brought to an end. What end is he talking about? Let's read and find out. Will not the ministry of the breath have even more esteem? For if there was esteem in the ministry of condemnation, the ministry of righteousness must far exceed it in esteem. Okay. Indeed, in this case, that what once had esteem has come to have no esteem at all, because the esteem that surpasses it. For if what was being brought to an end came to esteem, much more will what is permanent have esteem. When you read this flesh version or flesh understanding, you think that Paul or Shaul is saying the law has been made obsolete. It is coming to an end. There is no longer a need to continue the law. But let's read on. Okay, well, again, what was wrote on the tablets from the ideologies of the flesh gives the false impression that what was written on the tablets is going away because it was on stone. But now this that is of the breath is going to be eternal. So it's coming to, the old is coming to an end. But let's read on again. Shaul is exposing the contrast of, here it is, the law written on stone/tablets that brought condemnation versus what? The law written on hearts that brings salvation. Okay, that's what Shaul is making known here in the truth. What is the blindness of Yasharal? Okay, what is the blindness of the people of the 12 tribes? Know this to be true according to the context of the word. This is not the blindness of Yasharal. I know it looks like it. I know it's really easy to get out there and say, well, you know what? These so-called chosen people who reject Gentiles, who reject so-called white people, have to be blind because the scriptures talk about deliverance for all peoples. It talked about deliverance for the house of Esau even before the house of Esau was created. When he had made the promise to Abraham, and he said clearly that I will barak all people before Esau and Jacob were even in existence. Okay, and of course we've done this study before. If you don't know, you can go to Moving Mindset Ministry.org, click on the truth tab and go down to the Gentiles. You can see the truth about, if you don't already know, deliverance for the Gentiles in much greater detail. However, this also is not the blindness of Yasharel. Oh man, why they still partying? Why they still living it up? Why they still gangbanging? Why they still do? They must be blind. They can't see it. Yada yada. No, according to the word. According to the word. This is not the blindness of Yasharel. Believe me when I tell you, I thought the same thing too. Man, they got to be blind. But the truth of the matter is the answer is right here. Continuing 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 12 through 16. Since we have such expectation, we are very bold, not like Moshe, who would put on a veil over his face so that the children of Yasharel might not gaze at the outcome of what was being brought to an end. It's talking about when Moshe's face was so lit up so much because he stood in the presence of the most majestic one. He said he doesn't have to do that, okay, because it's a difference as far as how we receive. When we receive from Yahuwah, our face don't glow like that right now because of the breath that has been sent on the people. Goes on to say, but their minds were blinded. Who? The people in Yasharal. Their minds were blinded in the wilderness. And scripture goes on to say, for to this day, when they read the Old Testament, the same veil remains unlifted. They still can't see. Why? Because only through Yahusha it is taken away. Yes, to this day, whenever Moshe, talking about the law, the Torah, whenever Moshe is read, a veil lies over their hearts. It's over their heart. Okay, but when one turns to Yahuwah, the veil is removed. Okay, let's read on so help solidify this reality. Now, Yahuwah is breath, and where the breath of Yahuwah is, there is freedom. Okay, people used to say this nonsense in church, but they put in the LORD and the GOD so they can get you ready to open up that pocketbook, right? And we all, with unveiled faces, are beholding the esteem of Yahuwah, are being transformed into the same image from esteem to esteem. For this comes from Yahuwah, who is the breath, the ruach, the wind. Okay, he's saying that the people, listen, the people who are of Yasharel, the blindness is not in the blindness is not them speaking fake doctrines. That's not the blindness. That's the aftermath. The blindness is not in them wanting to be whatever they want to be. Live in the world, live for the world, be rich, ride around in cars. That's not the blindness. The blindness is when you read Torah to them. They have a veil that covers their face so they cannot see the truth, because at the end of the day, their hearts are blinded. The inside is blinded. That is the blindness that Shaul is talking about. He's not talking about all the other things that we have been conditioned or perceived to believe about them being blind. It is the law, okay? And it goes even further than that. Let's read on. The blindness of Yasharel is the willful rejection of righteousness and deliverance through Yahusha by Yahuwah, who writes the law of Moshe on their hearts. Okay, this is what he is in essence telling the people, because again, he is writing the people who are trying to come back to Shaul for some type of letter of recommendation. Hey, these are chosen. We're chosen people too. Can you write us a letter? Because we got these people over here. Again, who is Shaul talking about that are blind? Yasharel. And what was Yasharel telling these people? You're not chosen. You can't be saved. You're not of his people. So they went back to Shaul and those with him and said, can you give us some type of certificate or something so we can say, look, Shaul says we're chosen. So I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. It goes even further when they talk about circumcision. Oh, you're not circumcised, so you're not of his people, right? The people who made that statement were people who are of the heart blinded, of the mind blinded, because they could not receive the righteous right arm for deliverance and true righteousness, because their righteousness, as the scripture says, is filthy rags. So here is the proof in Baruch 2:25 through 35. Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where you have scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subjected to payments according to the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from Yahuwah our Elohim. So for all you people out there who are of the nations and think we're not going to pay for what your ancestors did, we paid. I'm paying today. Yeah. So you better get your heart right. And we're going to talk about that too. When we get to the part about this, the deliverance for the nations, the Gentiles. Hear, O Yasharel, our petition and our supplication, and deliver us for your own sake. Not my sake, his sake, his name's sake. And give us favor in the sight of them which carried us away, the slave masters, okay? Transatlantic slave trade. That all the earth may know that you are Yahuwah, your Alua, our Alua, our mighty one, because Yasharel and his posturity, I'll be jacking that word up, is called by your name. Okay, he's saying when you deliver us, give us favor in the midst of the people who oversaw us, who took us captive, carried us off. He said, then the world will know that you are Abba Yahuwah. You are the only true mighty one. Going on. O Yahuwah, look down on your consecrated house and consider us. Bow down your ear, O Yahuwah, to hear us. Open your eyes and behold, for the dead that are in the graves, whose breath are taken from their bodies, will give unto you neither esteem nor righteousness, but the being that is greatly vexed, which goes stooping and feeble, and the eyes that fail, that and the hunger being will give you esteem and righteousness, O Yahuwah. He's saying, come on and set us free. We out here going through it, Abba Yahuwah. Can you set us free? And we gonna give you the honor and esteem that belongs to you and righteousness. Therefore, we do not make our humble supplication before you, O Yahuwah, our Elohim, for the righteousness of our fathers or for our kings, for you have sent out your wrath and indignation upon us, as you have spoken by your servants, the messengers, saying, thus says Yahuwah, bow down your shoulders to serve the kings of Babylon, so you will remain in the land that I gave unto your fathers. But if you will not hear the voice of Yahuwah to serve the king of Babylon, I will cause to cease out of the cities of Yahudah and from without Jerusalem the voices of mirth and the voices of joy, and the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, and the whole land will be desolate of inhabitants. For all those people keep trying to say the Middle East has the promised land, stop lying, because the scriptures don't back that nonsense up. What backs it up is the Kalahari Desert, South Africa. We already covered that a couple studies ago. We're not gonna get into it too heavy, but check this out. The people were told, and this is it. You can find this in the book of Jeremiah or Jeremiah. They were told to serve the king of Babylon. Okay, the Babylonians. They didn't want to serve the king of Babylon. So Yahuwah said, okay, I'm going to bring them back and a greater army, and I'm taking everyone out of the southern kingdom, and you're all going into captivity. And that's what happened. And I bring that point up because I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about how they're getting a lot of flack from so-called believers who are saying, how can you pick up a certain job, and how can you do certain evil things for Babylon? Okay, those are evil, wicked jobs. First and foremost, go back and read the scriptures. Go back and read when Daniel was taken into captivity. What was his job? And the others who King Nebuchadnezzar said, get me these brothers up in here from Yasharel, the chosen people from the house. Bring them in here who don't look ugly, who got good skin and who are good at learning, so we can teach them the ways of the Chaldeans. So who? That's what Yahuwah said, serve the king of Babylon. Okay, it has nothing to do with the job you have per se. What it has to do with is why are you doing that job? Are you doing it for his sake? Are you doing it so that as Yosef or Joseph and Mizraim was taken into the land, he told his brothers, he said, what you meant for evil, Yahuwah meant for good, that he may save much people alive. What much people when there was only 12 brothers and a father at the time? He's talking about the whole nation of the Gentiles, the Egyptians, before they expanded into a massive 12 tribe people that they were trying to oppress, to destroy, to diminish. Okay, get your head right. Get out your fake doctrine nonsense about taking up jobs and other kind of things. Yeah, you should be taking up a job that is righteous. But guess what? Tell me when there's a job in Babylon that's righteous. Yeah, I didn't think so. It's all part of the wicked. It's why you are doing it. And if he's using you, what did Daniel do? The king needed the interpreter for his dream, but he didn't even want to tell nobody what the dream was. And he said, if y'all don't figure out what my dream is, all my sorcerers and magicians and stuff, he said, I'm going to have everybody's head. And Daniel was like, well, he didn't go off and say, well, you know what? That's not my job. That's a wicked job. He said, hold on, king. Let me seek Abba Yahuwah for the answer, and I'll come back to you. And that's exactly what he did. Yahuwah gave him the dream that the king wouldn't tell him and the interpretation of the dream. Today, people say, well, that's evil. That's wicked because you're doing it for the wicked. Sit down somewhere. Your doctrine is toe up. It had nothing to do with the scriptures. Let's move on. But we would not listen to your voice to serve the king of Babylon. Therefore, you have made good the words that you spoke by your servant, the messengers. The servants, the messengers, namely the bones of our kings and the bones of our fathers should be taken out of their place. And behold, they are cast out to the heat of the day and to the frost of the night. And they died in great misery by famine, by sword, by pestilence. And the house which is called by your name, you have laid waste. Yes, it's laid waste. So over there, the water dwelling on, stop it. As it is to be seen this day. So when you drive by the Kalahari Desert, you see a completely wasted land. For the wickedness of the house of Yasharel and the house of Yehuda. Okay, why do you say the house of Yasharel and the house of Yehuda? Because when desolation came, it came on the house of Yasharel, which are the 10 tribes. Okay, depending on where you read it, it'll say 10 and a half or 9.5 tribes. Okay, and then you had the other two, the 10.5 tribes, the northern kingdom, the Assyrians, which is Syria today, came and took them captive and did that for them. And then you had Babylon, came and took over the southern kingdom, took them all captive. Okay, yet you have dwelt with us, O Yahuwah, our Alua, mighty one, after all your goodness and according to all. Okay, according, where am I at here? According to your compassion, your goodness, and according to all your great compassion of yours, and you spoke by your servant Moshe in that day when you commanded him to write your law before the children of Yasharel, saying, if you will not hear my voice, surely this great multitude will be turned into a small number among the nations where I scatter them. This is like bread and butter. Okay, good bread, not the organic. I mean the GMO mess that got like a whole paragraph of ingredients, but the plain, simple bread and natural organic butter. I'm getting hungry, but this is the word that clearly shows that the people among the nations of the tribes are brought to a remnant. Okay, not in the wilderness. He didn't say he's going to do it in the wilderness. He said he's going to do it in the nations where his people are scattered. Let's cross-reference. Let's use cross-reference confirmation from this, from Deuteronomy 28, 61 through 68. We're not going to read the whole verses. We're just going to get the meat to cross-reference. You will be left few in number. Then I will scatter you among all peoples. Okay. And among those nations, you will find no rest. Your life will hang in doubt before you, and Yahuwah will take you back to Mizraim in ships. Okay. Mizraim. What's Mizraim? Oppression, affliction, trying to press down the people to destroy them because they are afraid if they ever came to the knowledge of themselves, if they ever came to better circumstances, they would rise up and defeat them. that is actually written in the book, How to Make a Negro a Christian. It is clear instructions that they said if we ever let them become favorable, they will take over the earth. That's what they knew that. Before I knew that, before I knew all this reality, it's already written in the book. Okay. However, for I knew they would not hear me because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivity, listen to this, beloved. This is what Yahudah writes so you can understand where we're at with the blindness of Yasharal. But in the land of their captivity, they will remember themselves. And they will know that I am Yahuwah, their Eluah. Okay, understand. JC, LORD, GOD, all that was put in the scriptures when the people were brought were brought into captivity. Okay. Now that we are realizing that they had inserted names and titles, we go back and we put the names, y'all, that was revealed to the Malachim in the last days. Okay. That was always there. We just didn't know because Deuteronomy 28 said you will serve other deities whom neither you nor your fathers have known, made of wood and stone. Okay. That's the cross which is wood, and the stone, the Muslim cube. Okay. For I will give them a heart and ears to hear. A heart to do what? Receive. Not a stony heart with stuff just bounce up off of it. He said he's going to give his people in the land of captivity hearts to receive, okay, and ears to hear. Okay, we talk about this is key realities about the blindness of Yasharel, and they will esteem me in the land of their captivity. Hold on. In the land of captivity. So you mean people over there trying to get back to people going to the Middle East, talking about, are we gonna go over here to get him to esteem? No. He said in the land of the captivity, they're gonna esteem him. They will think upon his name. Think upon his name. It can't be JC. It can't be LORD. It can't be GOD. Okay. And return from their stiff-neckedness. So they're gonna stop being hard-headed people. Where would they stop being hard-headed people at? In the land of captivity, not the wilderness. Okay, not back in the promised land. It's starting right now. And from their wicked deeds, they're gonna stop doing evil stuff. They're gonna stop doing lawless, corrupt, nonsense things. They will remember the ways of their fathers. They're just not gonna get out and talk about, old boy did such back in the day. That's why we in. He said they're gonna remember them. Okay, when you remember something, you take heed to what you remember. Who sin before Yahuwah. Okay, the awakening and return to the ancient paths of the law and righteousness and Yahusha starts in captivity right now as we speak. This is the essence. This is the foundation. This is the basis of the Great Awakening. Period. It don't happen anywhere else but in the land of captivity. When Moshe came to deliver the people from the land of Mizraim, of Egypt, before he went, he said, "What should I tell them, or who sent me?" Why did he say that? So that he can awaken the people. When you read on in the scriptures, I believe it's Leviticus, where the truth tells us that the tribe of Levi will put the name of Yahuwah on the children of Yasharel, and I will barak them, is what he said. He will barak them. Okay, so name is vital. Names is crucial. That's why they put LORD, GOD, and all this nonsense in the scripture. So when people wake up, they have a choice. People not sleep like we may assume or think. He said, when I in the land of your captivity, something's going to happen. There's going to be an awakening that's going to take place. And those who belong to him will no longer walk like their fathers walked in the land of captivity. So from choosing to serve the Babylonians in righteousness to turning away from hypocritical Torah understanding and perpetuations, all that nonsense, fake names, lying names they taught you in church, all that goes away for the chosen people. So the reality is, where is the blindness in Yasharal according to the church doctrine or the camp doctrine? When they walk around and tell people on corners, oh, the black man don't want to listen to that, he chosen. So hold on, what's the law? What is the blindness according to the law of the word, right? And I will bring them again in the land which I have promised, with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they will be masters of it. And I will increase them, and they will not be diminished. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them to be their mighty one, and they will be my people, and I will no more drive my people, Yasharel, out of the land that I have given them. Baruch, also spelled Baruck or H, chapter 2, verse 25 to 35. Okay. He says that he's going to bring his people back after the awakening, after all the details in which is written out in this chapter. All I did was just bullet them. I just turned them into bullets. I didn't add or didn't put my own spin on it. Just made bullets to show you exactly what he said. He said, all this will happen in the land of captivity. Okay. Yahuwah promises not to diminish his people again, whom he has already decreased. Already decreased. We saw twice that he's going to shrink his people. He's going to scatter them, and then he's going to shrink them some more while they're scattered. Okay. Before they even get to the wilderness, where there will be a final purge, according to Yahaskal or Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 30 through 38. This is willful rebellion and rejection, not blindness. Not blindness. It ain't because, they got on this platform and rejected. Somehow, some way, Yahuwah has spoke to them, and they choose to still do the wrong thing. Through a social media platform, a vision, a dream, a passerby, me meeting the gentleman at the gas station, the word, the awakening has occurred. Rebellion and rejection is at the forefront of most of Yasharel, which is why the word repeatedly says that only a remnant will return. What will happen to the rest? Remember, the blindness of Yasharel is believing that deliverance is in their version of the righteousness of the law, apart from being in the righteous right arm of Yahuwah. That is the blindness. It's not rebellion. It's not doing what you want. It's not speaking another church doctrine or camp doctrine. That's not blindness. Clubbing, hanging out, doing your thing, right? That is not blindness. That is the aftermath of blindness. That is the product of blindness. Blindness is saying, I'm going to do me, my version of the Torah, okay? My version of the word when it's given. Go back to the people in the wilderness. What happened to them? They were given Torah and they did what they want with it. That was the blindness of the heart. And after that, by the product of that, what came from that blindness was all the other things we see happening then and now today. This brings us to the salvation of the nations, Romans 11 through 33. We're going to read here. Then I say, have they stumbled that they should fall? Certainly not. But through their fall to provoke them to jealousy, salvation has come to the Gentiles. Now, if their fall is richness for the world and their failure richness for the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? For I speak to you Gentiles in so much as I am an apostle or sent one to the Gentiles. I esteem my work, if by any means I may provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh and save some of them. For if their being cast away is the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? Okay. He's not talking, a lot of people take the verse, and we're going to solidify this, but they take the verse and they say, well, all the Yasharel will be saved anyway, so it don't really matter. No, that's not what the context of what he's saying. All of Yasharel will be saved is all of the 12 tribes, not simply the southern kingdom. Okay, you have to understand, Yehuda, Benjamin were the leader. Yehuda first and foremost is the leader. Then along his side was Benjamin, and then Levi, because he's scattered among, and he's the one called to be used to teach the Torah. Okay, so The hard-headed, super hard-headed, more rebellious among them were the 10 tribes, Yasharel, the northern kingdom. Okay, so in context, he is of course talking about the house in general, but he's saying that the entire house, though rebellious, will still receive deliverance. Not every person of the house. And when he says provoke them unto jealousy, he's not talking about the jealousy in which you see people standing on the corner dressed up in purple, gold, black, silver, whatever. He's not talking. I've heard some people say, it was a couple songs and some other things they were saying. Don't let these white people out praise Yahuwah and yo God and all this kind of stuff. Said, why? That's not the context of what he's saying. He's saying that their jealousy is that, listen, someone else is going to come in the house too. Okay, now you are got a seat that was originally yours, and the truth is that seat can't be filled with no one else. Okay, there is no such thing as spiritual tribe members. Gentiles cannot become spiritual tribe members. You better read Yahaskal after he talks about the return in chapter 38, I believe. Chapter 40 gives it. There's going to be land that's going to be given to the tribes, and there's going to be land explicitly given to the Gentiles. Why would you separate the lands in the promised land if we're all spiritual tribe members? Okay, let's make it make scriptural sense, right? So the jealousy is, I see people coming, and I was supposed to be there getting it right, but I didn't do it. My forefathers, my ancestors didn't do it. So let me do it right, because I'm an embarrassment to Yahuwah compared to the Gentiles who are coming in by favor, not by bloodline. Okay, for if the first fruit is consecrated, the lump is also consecrated, and if the root is consecrated, so are the branches. Okay, and if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, talking about Gentiles right now, were grafted in among them, and with them became partakers of the root. The root is the most majestic one, Abba Yahuwah, and richness of the olive tree. Do not boast against the branches. Do not go around talking that nonsense about you got it together, Gentiles and all that. The branches still toe up. They don't know how to figure it out. He said, but if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. Okay, and that root is not simply just Abba Yahuwah, because he do calls a people. We're going to see that in the scripture, so you understand the context, the full context of what he means by the root supporting you who are wild branches by nature. By nature meaning you were not called originally off the cusp of the calling that was given to Abraham. Though the promise was made to all nations, we have to go down the pattern of the lineage of the Hebrew lineage and realize that yes, he called, but he chose a people, and to use these people, planting them around the nations, olive trees, right, fig trees, in order to produce the fruit to bring other people into the house, right? You will say then, branches are broken off that I may be grafted in. Well said. Because of unbelief, they were broken off. Why? Unbelief. Okay, not simply I'm speaking another doctrine, not simply I'm going to the club. It was unbelief. When were these branches broken off? It was long before the righteous right arm walked the earth. It started back in the wilderness when they left ancient Egypt, Mishraim. That's when they were broken off. And it's been a constant pattern all down the line of history. Okay, all throughout the ages. That is what he means by being broken off. Okay, he said, and you stand by belief. They come in, stand in the house because they believe, right? Not by bloodline, but by belief. Do not be haughty, but fear, for if Yahuwah did not spare the natural branches, he didn't spare them in the wilderness, he's not going to spare them in the end, and these end times, and he's not sparing them right now. They're dropping and being judged. He may not spare you either. Therefore, consider the goodness and severity of Yahuwah on those who fell, severity, fell in the wilderness, falling right now. But on you, goodness, if you continue in his goodness. Don't get it twisted. You know, there's a lot of, that's why you got the ridiculous spiritual, Yasharal nonsense. Okay. It's about goodness. Goodness is what? Obedience to Torah. Okay. Otherwise, you will also be cut off, and they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, will be grafted in. Okay, talking about the tribes will become grafted back in because they were broken off because of unbelief. For Yahuwah is able to graft them in again. Okay, on what? Belief, on obedience, what they didn't want to do before because they were trying to function according to the Pharisaic understanding of the law. What was the Pharisees' understanding of the law? It was not what people keep getting on here trying to tell me. It was not some nonsense about, well, you want to keep the Torah, so you're a Pharisee. Oh, you think you're from the chosen tribe, so you know you must be a Pharisee. No, the Pharisees' understanding of the law, how they functioned the law, was that they exchanged, as the scripture says, the commands of Yahuwah for the traditions of man. They didn't wipe away all the commands. They believed in the Shabbat. They went to the appointed feast, but they had their own rules, their own version of the rules, who can come, what they can bring, right? The scriptures even talk about how they were so meticulous about the tithe. They were measuring it down to the smallest grain. Okay, you didn't bring enough. Go back. Do it again. Just like, what's that pastor in the Kojic church? Marvin Winans chewing that lady out because she didn't bring an extra 1,800. Yeah, that's church Pharisee. Yeah, making up pathways for his stuff to the lake. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into the cultivated olive tree, how much more will these, who are natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? What is Shaul saying here? He said, if you were cut off from the olive tree, which is wild by nature, he's saying the olive tree of the world. The world was wild by nature from the jump. Okay. Remember, we read a second ago where he talked about the fall, the fall and the failure of Yasharel is reconciliation for the world. When Adam and Chawa or Eve rebelled, the world needed reconciliation after that. This is long before the tribes came into existence. Okay, so the world was broken off from the original olive tree before the house of Yasharal. However, the natural branches were those who he had made the promise to through Moshe or through Abraham down to his son and his grandson Jacob, of a people of the promise. Okay, that's the natural, the original branch of the promise, and their failure allowed the nations to come in to fulfill his promise to Abraham. His ways is far above man. How he does things, we cannot perceive them all. We can only go off of what he has given us in his word and the understanding thereof from the Shemaim. For I do not want you to be unaware or ignorant of this mystery, brothers, so that you are not conceited. Okay, you don't want you to be thinking high about yourself when you're really not up there like that. That the partial blindness has happened to Yasharel until the full number of the nations has come in. And so all Yasharel will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away wickedness from Jacob, for this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. Okay, so what is Shaul saying here? Very clearly that deliverance will come to the house of Yasharel as a whole, not every person. Okay, not every human being. That's a misconception from church doctrine down to the sister camps. Okay, but deliverance will come out of the promised land, Zion. Okay, and those who are partially blind. What is partially blind? What do we talk about? It's clearly shows in the scripture. Partially blind is doing your version of the law. When it is read, you have a version of it, a half reality of it. Partial blindness. I want the law, but I don't want the righteous right arm of Abba Yahuwah. You want half. You want partial. You don't want the true Redeemer that solidifies the law. Again, partial blindness, believing in the law while rejecting the lawgiver. How ridiculous is that? It is very, very asinine. But the truth is, that is the history. You got to read it in the word. It's clear from cover to cover. That is exactly what the house of Yasharal did. In other words, they accepting the law written on stone while rejecting the law written on one's heart. That is partiality in the belief. The whole belief is, I believe in the law, but I also believe that the law is meaningless without the righteous right arm extended unto the earth for deliverance of all men. Continuing, regarding the Barashah, the good news, they are enemies for your sake. But regarding the choosing, they are loved for the sake of the fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob. For the gifts and the callings of Yahuwah are irrevocable. They irrevocable. They used to say that nonsense in church in order to get you to get that money up. Yeah. Oh, the gifts and callings. So go ahead, and he said he gonna give you that house. He called you to that ministry. He gonna bring you into that favor. Go sit elsewhere. For just as you were once disobedient to Yahuwah, yet you now receive mercy through disobedience, talking about the Gentiles. Okay. Even so also these also have now been all disobedient, so that through the mercy shown to you, they may receive mercies, talking about the nations. For Yahuwah has confined everyone to disobedience, so that he may have mercy on everyone. Okay, mercy on everyone. What you mean, everyone? But I thought Esau was hated forever. Go back and read the word. He said, he said, leave your orphans and your widows for me. Those who are no longer of the father, the Esau house, he said he will preserve them alive. He's talking about the Edomites, talking about the nations, Gentiles and Gentiles in general. Okay. Oh, the depth of the richness, both the wisdom and the knowledge of Yahuwah, how unsearchable are his judgments and his ways beyond discovery. Again, it's Romans 11 through 33. Man, it's such a beautiful truth. It's such a beautiful truth because, again, people have the wrong perception about the blindness of Yasharal, and that wrong perception leads to the deception that so-called Gentiles can receive salvation. Now, here is the hard reality. I'm about to hit you with the reality Yahuwah dropped on me. Again, this came to me some time back, but I was like, nah, this can't really be. And I didn't even want to press on it. I didn't want to press on it because I didn't want to put my spin on anything. I want to give you what the words say. Deep reality right here. If the blindness of Yasharel is clearly defined as the rejection of the law being written on one's heart by the lawgiver, who are all the lawless, so-called blacks who claim to be the chosen people? Yeah, let that marinate for a second. Who are they? On the corners, in the pulpits, churches, camps, all over this so-called internet, streaming everywhere, probably streaming right now, and got more streaming coming up. Yeah, who are these people? I know their works, tribulation and poverty, but you are rich. And I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Yahudim and are not, but are the synagogue of Hashatan, Revelations 2:9. Man, listen, this is a home run that I was not willing to hit. I was not willing to hit. Not because I'm worried about other people's feelings or, you might not like this one coming across. No, because I myself had to receive this reality. Who wants to see the people who are the most hated, rejected, despised people on the planet be not only rejected, spend their ages, their lives rejected, but then be punished and sent to condemnation for deliverance, all because they pretended to be of the tribe of Yehuda. Let's solidify this reality with the word. All right. These people, again, what did Baruch chapter 2 say? He said, in the land of their captivity, they will come to themselves. They will remember the deeds of their ancestors. They will declare his name, Yahuwah. They will esteem his name. They will turn from their stiff-neckedness. They will remember his ways. So who are these people who claim to be the chosen people? A lot of people are going to be, woo. I mean, man, when this reality finally settles on the earth, that the so-called black people as a whole are not the chosen people, but that the chosen people are among the black people, yeah, it's going to be a heavy one. Baruch said that he will diminish his people, leave them in few in the nations in which he scattered them. So there's a lot of people running around doing exactly what Shaul had said. Everybody that is Yasharel is not Yasharel. Cross-reference confirmation. The truth. You are of your father the devil, and the desires your fathers do, for he is a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. For he speaks, when he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of it. 𝐤𝐄𝐄𝐄 8:4. Listen, what does the scripture says? He was a murderer from beginning. What do the people who claim to be chosen, the masses on the corners in purple, fringes, silver, fringes, say they want to happen to the so-called white man? What do they want to happen to? They want the judgment of Yahuwah to fall upon them. They want them to be judged. What judgment is Yahuwah promising the world? Death. Yeah, they're not going to get it together. They're not going to tighten up. They're not going to figure it out. He's going to promise them this life perishing and perishing in the next. Why are you wishing death upon people, but you claim to be the chosen? Because Yahusha said it very clearly, but the distraction is super heavy with the people over there in the Middle East. He said, your father is the devil, because he is a liar. He cannot stand in the truth. He speaks from his own source. Who were the Pharisees whom he is talking to? What were they about? We just talked about it. They exchanged the commands for the most majestic one for what? The tradition of man. Isn't it the tradition of the angry so-called retaliatory black man to deny the so-called white people? Malcolm X did it. One West did it. And so many others do it. Did it and still do it. But yet they take the law. They say they have the law. They say they have Torah. They are over the law, while they're also rejecting man. They're showing up to appointed feasts and kicking people out that have a complexion that don't fit theirs. 𝐤𝐄𝐄𝐄 chapter 8, verse 44. You are of your father, the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. You want to kill because you cannot stand in the truth, because truth is not subjective. Truth is not altered. Truth is a barrier that cannot move. It cannot be once you put something in truth that is not truth, it is no longer truth. Heavy truth right here, right? The heart. For he is not a Yahudi or tribal Yahuda who is one outwardly, nor is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh, but he is Yahudi who is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart in the breath, not in the letter. We just talked about the letter and the breath. Okay. Whose esteem is not for men, but for Yahuwah. Romans 2:8-28-22. Why did Shaul say this? He did not say this to create no spiritual Yasharel. Oh, I'm circumcised in the heart, so I'm Yahudi. No, again, there's separations in lands. Go read Revelation. It talked about the 144,000. He names specific tribes. Okay. We talked about, again, it's very clear, movingmindsetministry.org. Click on, go to truth and click on the Gentiles tab, and you will see that there's a promise set up for those who honor the name of Yahuwah, who don't deny his name. He will give them a name and a place that's better than sons and daughters. So he did not say this to squeeze everybody in that wanted to be a part of the house under the Yahuda tribe. Okay. What he's saying here very clearly is that if you operate according to the letter, but you miss the breath of Yahuwah, then you are not even Yahudi. You may be by bloodline, but you are not according to the kingdom, the eternal kingdom. Okay. Righteousness. We're going to solidify this even further. We're going to get on right here. Righteousness. Hear this, O Jacob, who are called by the name of Yasharal and have come forth from the well springs of Yahuda, who swear by the name of Yahuwah and make mention of the mighty one of Yasharel, but not in truth or in righteousness. Yeah. For they call themselves after the consecrated city and lean on the allure of Yasharel, Yahuwah of hosts, in his name. He's saying they are flat out hypocrites. Yasharal, Isaiah 48, 1-2. They are hypocrites. They are called, chosen, but they lean on their own understanding, but they call on him, they mention him, but not in truth and righteousness. They do their own thing. Knowledge. It's a beautiful one right here. They profess to know Yahuwah, the Almighty, the Creator, the all-powerful one, the all-wise one. But in works, they deny him, being abominable, disobedient, and disqualified for every good work. Okay, Titus 1, 16. He said they don't even measure up, period. Okay. The calling. Look at what Paul says here. For such are false sent ones. I'm telling you, this is simple reality. We're about to knock this thing right home right here. Sent ones, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into sent ones of Yehuda, of the anointed. They transform themselves. They pretend to be apostles, which you probably read in the scriptures. Sent ones of the anointed. And no wonder, listen, for Satan himself transformed himself into a messenger of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if his workers also transform themselves into workers of righteousness, whose end will be according to their work. Okay, 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13-15. When I initially read this in the awakening, my understanding and even the perception thereof was that these are the Revelation 2:9 people over there in the Middle East. That's what I thought. I believe that was them. Then as I continue to grow and he continues to reveal to me, I came to the realization of this question. When was the last time you saw Jews on the corner claiming to be the sent ones? They may claim to be the chosen, but when are they out preaching the good news? Where do you see them at? I haven't seen that one. Okay. So when you go back and you read the verse here, who is Paul really talking about? Who is Shaul really identifying here? Who were we truly being warned about? Again, folks have the wrong energy on the stuff / people that don't have the effectiveness in which that lines up in which we were warned about. Acts chapter 20. What did we read? He said that after his departure, people will come in from the outside and people will raise up from the inside. What did we start off reading with Yehuda or Jude? He said they crept in unnoticed. That this person looked like he gonna creep in among Yasharel. Absolutely not. That's why they're not on the corner talking about get up in here, get these fringes and tassels on, and honor the Shabbats and appointed feasts so you can receive deliverance. And you can't come in if you ain't got my skin type nonsense. You don't see that. Okay. Because Shaul was never talking about these people. The synagogue of Satan has variations of imposters. You have those who look like, again, they are of the tribe. They don't just have the complexion. If you want to talk about skin tone, That's related to the people who went through the Deuteronomy 28 curses, but they also dress up in appointed feasts. What did he say? What did Yahusha, the righteous right arm, say to be on the lookout for? He said, beware of those who are outwardly dressed up in the attire of the sheep, but on the inside, they are after you to destroy you. Yes. How do they destroy you from the inside out? They do so with lies. They do so with a heart that rejects the truth of deliverance. Then you have, of course, this, who is, again, this is Psalm 83 conspiracy at its finest. This is the essence of the conspiracy, designed to fool not the chosen people. Understand that. They can't, this is not fooling the chosen. They were never called. He never said, I know those who say they are of the tribe of Yehudah, but they're going to try to fool you. He never said that. I know those who claim to be you, but are the synagogue of Satan, watch out because they're going to hoodwink you. No, he said he knows who they are, but I will make them bow down and worship XYZ. Okay. These people were part of the conspiracy to create an illusion to the world, to get the world on their side, to go over there. That's why, again, the focus. Yes, there is going to be the man of sin that's going to rise up out of the east, the dust bowl, okay? But that's not the essence of what we were warned about. What did we just read in the apocalypse of Kepha, or Peter? He said, Kanak and Elijah will come down and teach them who is the lawless one. You get even further into that reality when you read the apocalypse of Elijah, okay? Where he explains even detail what the lawless one will look like. But people will follow after them because of their wicked deeds. What is wickedness? What is wickedness according to the word? I'm not talking about Hollywood, church doctrine. I'm talking about according to the word. Scripture always points out wickedness as rebellion to what Yahuwah has commanded. The context that is backed by the precepts, that is demonstrated by the repetitive actions pointed out in Scripture. Okay? That is what wickedness is, and that is what people will follow after. And of course, you have the other imposters with this ridiculous notion that has absolutely no support anywhere in the word of we can all be spiritual Yasharel. All you got to do is just believe. Yeah. People see judgment coming, and anything start to make sense when you are not, when you haven't repented, when you still have a heart for this dying age. The contextual truth is that the synagogue of Satan refers to assemblies of deception, opposition to truth, while claiming covenant legitimacy. Church, camps, the Dust Bowl people, you name it, people who are now saying Yahuwah, right? How many people y'all hearing out here now saying Yahuwah? We believe in Yahuwah, we believe in Yahusha, but you can still say G-O-D, L-O-R-D, Christ, and all this other kind of stuff because he's so loving. Don't condemn people, right? Yeah. Synagogue of Hashatan, period. Period. They are claiming to be. They're claiming to belong. But at the end of the day, they are of deception and opposition to the truth in context, right? When when it comes to the true chosen, many will be false messengers and will teach ways and diverse doctrines of perdition and will become banaim of perdition, branches, extensions of the synagogue of Hasatan. Apocalypse of Kepha, chapter 1, verse 2, 1 through 2. Okay, when I first read this verse, it was like a pow, whoa, right? Because people look at that Yahaskar, Ezekiel, dry bones scripture and think, oh man, it's gonna be a whole army rising up, and we're gonna take back the land, and we're gonna be this, and we're gonna be that, and we're gonna be kings, and such and such. He said, no. Before any of this happens, before there is the restoration, before the people are brought back to the land, many of them will become false messengers, and they will become children of the devil. What does that mean? That means that at one point they were children of the Almighty. They were the natural branches. They were originally of the house. But because they're going to open up their mouths And as Yehuda said, they're going to speak things that they have no clue about. Even the natural stuff, they're going to speak stupid stuff about. And they're going to bring judgment onto them. That's why he said, woe unto these people. And that judgment is that they become children of Hashatan, and that punishment will be equivalent to what Hashatan is going to receive, eternal judgment. This is why this is the mystery of perdition or lawlessness being revealed. When Paul said it's being revealed, this is it right here. This is the mystery, claiming one thing from the mouth, but living another from the heart. I'm not talking about your financial success dreams and your bucket list goals and what Shaul was talking about the law. Perdition has to deal with violation, rejection, denial of Torah. Okay, and not just denial of the law, but the lawgiver. You cannot have the law, truly have the law, without the lawgiver. John 6:44. I told you before, and I tell you again, unless Yahuwah draws this person to me, they cannot come. So it don't matter how much Torah you read, study, how you petition, how you fast. It don't matter, none of that stuff. Until he draws you to Yahuwah, you are not of his. No matter what your bloodline is. And many who are of the bloodline, as we just read in Apocalypse of Kepha, will become children of the lawless one. Yasharel, Isaiah 42:18-25 says, hear, you deaf, and look, you blind, that you may see. Who is blind but my servant? Who are the servants? Yehuda, Yasharel, the 12 tribes. Okay. Oh, deaf or deaf. It says, who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger whom I send? Okay. Who is blind? Who is blind as he who is perfect, and blind as Yahuwah's servant, seeing many things, but you do not observe, opening your ears, but he does not hear. That is the blindness of Yasharel. Blindness according to his word. Okay. Yahuwah is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will exalt the Torah and make it honorable. He will do this. It will be done. It's being done right now, despite what people are saying. But this is a people robbed and plundered. All of them are snared in holes, and they are hidden in prison houses. They are for prey, and no one delivers, for plunder, and no one says restore. Okay, now understand, there's more to come other than this judgment. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will listen and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for plunder and Yasharel to robbers? What was it not Yahuwah? He against whom we have sinned, for they would not walk in his ways, nor were they obedient to his Torah. This is the blindness. It's not talking about other doctrines. It's not living club life. That is the aftermath of the blindness. Okay. Therefore, he has poured on him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and has placed him on fire around all. Yet he did not know, and it burned him. Yet he did not take it to heart. Man, is that not the truth today? This is why salvation has come to the nations. Yasharel, Isaiah 42:18-25. It's not 42:18-25. We just read that. It's actually 48. It's 48. I was meaning to tell you, it's only 8 chapters over. He talked about the Gentiles receiving salvation after majority of the house of Yasharel being perished. Indeed, he says, is it too small a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the preserved ones of Yasharel? The preserved ones. I mean, everybody didn't get preserved, because everybody want to be preserved. That's what come down to. Ain't anybody no special nothing. Okay, most of them don't want it. That's why the scripture says many will become sons of the devil. It said, I will also give you as a light unto the Gentiles, that you should be my deliverance to the ends of the earth. Okay. Yahuwah never uses the blind to lead. The blind are always led towards judgment. It didn't matter how much scripture they read. It don't matter how much they show up for an appointed feast. If you are doing your version of the Torah, you are, if not already, you will become a child of the devil. And the only place left for that is judgment, as we read in Hebrews chapter 2. If we continue to sin willfully, showing up to holidays, keep going to church, keep saying pagan names, keep doing all these things that the scripture clearly shows you ought not do, you will become children of Hashatan. The truth is, many are already his children. They're already his children. And how do you know that? He knows that. Because they continue to do the very things they've been told not to do. How can you solidify this reality? We just did. Baruch chapter 2. He said, in the land of their captivity, before the Exodus, before the return, before the people go back home, he said they will have an awakening. They will come to themselves. They will remember his name and stop using the names they were taught by the wicked. So when they stand on the corners and they're in the pulpits and they're on the internet giving esteem and honor and they're petitioning to God, Christ, Lord, whoever other than Abba Yahuwah, then that means they have been handed over to Hashatan. They are now his Banaim, his branch, his extension of the house. Okay. All esteem belongs to the most majestic one for this truth. This is why Zechariah 8:23 declares, thus says Yahuwah of hosts. In those days, 10 men from every language of the nations will grasp the sleeve. Some of you will see skirt or hem of a Yahudi man, one from the tribe of Yehuda. One man will have 10 people latched on to him from every language of the nation, saying, let us go with you, for we heard Yahuwah. We heard that Yahuwah is with you. The truth is, there aren't as many from the tribe of Yehuda as it appears. The evidence is in the scriptures. The evidence is in the word. The evidence is in the facts that is given from the most majestic one. We have to realize that there are more people living for the devil than there are for Abba Yahuwah. Let's go back over the history. Why would that change today? When you have more distractions, you have more deception, you have more ways to deny him, you have more reasons and excuses to not live right. Why would we have more today than it was even then, when they didn't have Netflix, when they didn't have the bar and grill, when they didn't have all these so-called success opportunities, colleges, universities, sporting events, goals and bucket lists and vacations and all these things people can do, scrolling through platform after platform, media update after media update. All this stuff didn't even exist in those days. But the enemy has convinced folks that we have more of the tribe of Yehuda than it was then, when the very word says that he will scatter his people, and in the land of captivity, he will diminish them. We need to take the word for it. Don't take my word for it. Take the word for it. The blindness of Yasharal is not people continue to say wrong things. And the blindness of Yasharal is not people continue to show up to church and to continue to walk in false doctrine. The blindness of Yasharal at the end of the day is, I will do the law however I choose. That is the blindness of Yasharal. When people say God, Lord, and all these other names and do all these other things, listen, what did he say? He said, I come in my Abba's name. I come in my Abba's name and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive. They don't receive the name because that's the act of blindness. They receive the other name because that is the aftermath. That is the byproduct. That is what is produced from blindness, because they reject the simplicity of the word, which it says very clearly. The third command says it very plainly. And what is that command? Do not bring the name of Abba Yahuwah to nothing, for he will not hold that person guiltless. So when you say, I'm going to keep saying these names, when you say, I'm going to keep calling on these names, you are simply saying, I'm going to do my version of the law. That is the blindness of Yasharal. What happens after that is the product of that blindness. That is the reality. And because of this ongoing, forever and a day rebellion of the tribes of Jacob, Esau, Ishmael, Japheth, Ashkenaz, and so many people who should not even be in the house because of what they did are going to get access. They're going to get access. They're going to be more of the people of the nations who are going to see the promised land than there will be the people who are of the tribes of Jacob. If that ain't the proof in the word, then I don't know what is. But I esteem Abba Yahuwah because he made it plain to me. And I hope it was made plain to you. Yes, you may not like this depiction, but I don't care. Because the truth is clear. There will be very few from the tribe of Yahudah who will be leading the people to Abba Yahuwah. We want to go with you. Woo! Because we heard that Yahuwah is with you, meaning he's not at church. He's not at the masses who claim to be from the tribe of Yahudah. He's not at the camps. He's not on the internet. He's not in these other assemblies and whatever these things are called. He is with the remnant of the people who belong to the southern kingdom, in which he will make one kingdom under one king, who is himself. Okay, get it together. All you talking about, there's two different people out there. You in the wrong study session. Most people who are claiming to be of the tribes who are so-called black are not them. Period. They are not. It's a hard reality, but it is a reality. And you cannot prove anything different according to the word, because it does not exist. Believe me when I tell you, I done read through. I don't know any books out there I haven't read yet. And all esteem to Abba Yahuwah, he allowed me to do such, to even have the discipline, the focus, first of all, because the books be long, but the focus and the discipline to read those books for him to give me the truth and understanding with clarity. Nevertheless, the solid foundation stands, having this seal. Yahuwah knows who are his. Let everyone who names the name of Yahuwah depart from unrighteousness. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 19. This is why you shouldn't be out here chasing lineage, trying to figure out if you from a certain tribe, because Auntie and Tay and them was born in such land and on this, that, and no. Unless Yahuwah reveal it to you, you don't need to be searching for squat, because you'll get caught up in the same nonsense as the doctrine of the modern day, present day Pharisees, where they read about talking about our father with Abraham. And you're like, no, your father's a devil. You belong to Hashatan because you are doing the wrong thing while claiming to do the right thing. Your heart is not set in the right place. That's what he was exposing. Why would you want to do something different? Why would you have a desire, an expectation, a plan to do things totally different to the plain truth given to you? Only way you can do something like that and not feel any conviction behind that is because you belong to the devil. Period. There's no way around. There's no way to try to fluff that up and sweeten it up. He says very clearly, I think it's first or second 𝐤𝐄𝐄 or John, He says, those who practice righteousness are of him who is righteous. He said, those who practice sin are of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. So it's only one way or the other. There's no all that gray area stuff, that misconception about lukewarm. You either hot or cold. Lukewarm means you jumping on one side of the fence. You on this side, you jump back on the other side. You can't walk on a darn fence. Okay, you're going to fall on one side and you get back up on that darn fence because you don't want to commit to one side. You're going to fall on the other side. That's what he means by being lukewarm. The truth is, lukewarm is just as the same as being wicked, being flat out on the side of wickedness. And he's saying, go ahead and just pick a side, because at the end of the day, I'm going to spew you out anyway. So you might as well, you hopping around, choose what side you're going to be on. Okay. Everybody who names his name needs to stop doing unrighteous nonsense. Things that cannot be supported in the truth. Things that cannot be upheld by the word in context. Gentiles are receiving salvation at the expense of the people who should have gotten their butt together already. But he said it was going to happen. This is all prophetic reality coming into fruition in real time, right before our eyes. So many so-called black people are dying. And they heard the truth. And they don't want it. And judgment will fall upon them. Remember, beloved, the narrow path. It doesn't include your opinion, perspective, views, understandings, perceptions, your interpretations, theology, none of that nonsense. It is the narrow path mandates you obey the word. It mandates that you have belief in the righteous right arm, and that belief is demonstrated by your obedience. You can claim to believe all you want to. It don't matter if you don't obey. You can obey all you want to. It don't matter if you don't believe. They go hand in hand. It's the breath and the body and the breath. Take one, separate the two, and neither one are effective. Yeah, you got to live out what you believe. The justified will live by belief. They're not going to just say one thing, say something and not live by it. They're going to act like, oh, we got it together. But then they don't even believe. Yeah, people are perishing. They're being cut off. Many people are walking dead who could probably find out if you had the original DNA that they were from the tribes. If you had the original, somebody went and got Moshe blood and preserved it somewhere, or Abraham's blood or something nonsense. They talking about the Shroud of Turin, talking about it was a thing left on his face. And they was able to, say, man, that sounds about Edomite, silly nonsense deception. All these years it preserved the imprint of his face, and now that's what he looks like. Yeah, it looked like a damn lie. Hope you don't fall for that nonsense. Tighten up, get it right, because we in the middle of the night. We in the darkest hour, and the worst is yet to come. And you need to be ready according to the truth and context. Turn from the sins you enjoy. Stop walking the court of unrighteousness. Throw your bucket list in the trash, because you ain't gonna remember none of that stuff when you in judgment. You ain't gonna be in hell talking about, man, that was a heck of a vacation. You're not gonna be perishing talking about, man, that was such a good steak. No, you're gonna be trying to figure out how to get the hell out of there. That's what you're gonna be trying to do. Trying to figure out how to stop dying the second time. Yeah. So tighten up. Get it right. Get it right before the night is over. Because when the daylight finally shines, ain't gonna be no more. Ain't gonna be no more. All this thing belongs to the Abihu. I see y'all here and there dropping these comments and joining this study. The most majestic one, be esteemed for you coming this way. He led you over here. I didn't come out and grab you. He led you this way. For those who support this gathering, Yahuwah will be esteemed. Yahuwah will be esteemed, because, again, we don't do the, hey, if you support this ministry, I'll give you a private session of teaching. I'll send you an autographed book. Yeah, I don't do none of that junk. Yahuwah will provide. He always has. right? It'd be nice if we were an assembly together and people would honor the law and give according to the law. But guess what? They're not gonna do that. That's why when you really get down to the truth of the truth, when you really get down to the fine line of the truth, you know what you come to realize? It's only a remnant. It's only a remnant. It's not a massive amount of people. The remnant is depicted by obedience. Obedience to what? What I say? Obedience to what someone else told them? Or obedience to the Torah in the context thereof? That defines the remnant. Yeah, you are mandated to believe and obey. That was given to them in the time of the wilderness. This ain't new because the righteous right arm of Abba Yahusha came. This has always been the case. You're always supposed to show your belief by how you obey. And it has to align up by what he say. But people don't want to do that because they have 1,000 reasons why not. Well, look at the season, look at the time. We're not in the wilderness yet. The covenant has been fully restored and all these things. Yeah, a lot of those things are actually true. Covenant has not been fully restored. But what did he say is going to happen in the captivity? He said they will remember my name and they will honor him. How do you honor him? By obeying him. Obeying what? What he said. So all this thing belongs to him for those who name his name and depart wickedness. Okay, you fall down, get yourself back up. Don't make no excuses. Don't be trying to act like, I'm the only one going through it. No, don't be wallowing in the mud. Get yourself back up. Be that righteous woman, be that righteous man. The scripture says the righteous fall 7 times, but every time they get back up, the wicked are not so. When calamity comes, that's it for them. It's over. They done. I'm out. That's the seed that fell on the rocks, the thorny bushes, the dry ground. I'm out. I ain't doing no more. I'm going back to church. It's too hard. Ain't nobody else out here saying Yahuwah. Ain't nobody else wearing no tassels. I'm gonna go to church. I can at least put on my sun worship day best. All esteem to the most majestic one, Abba Yahuwah. All right. Walk according to the truth. And remember to always reduce yourself. Be less. Humble yourself. Don't think of yourself something that you're not. You ain't right and tight. Get it right so that you can stand in the night. And when it comes time, when everybody else is destroyed, you're the one left. And your life, as Shaul said, your life is the letter. It is the recommendation. The recommendation. Yeah, it is the recommendation because you are evidence of Yahuwah, the most majestic one. Shabbat Shalom, family. Rest up. And remember, walk it out.